All right, welcome back to Up the Dogs. It is the day after the game, and I know I said when I did the first episode of Up the Dogs that I'd be doing it on the day of the game, but that just didn't happen this week. It is what it is. We're here, as you said, the day after the game, and we're going to break down all the little talking points from yesterday's game, sort of, I guess, review the game, but more so just focusing on a few talking points out of the game and just a few things I noticed in the game as well that I want to talk about. Obviously, the Bulldogs, we beat the Rabbitohs 24-18. We ended up only winning on conversions, which is kind of crazy considering we led 18-0. That's like when we're up 18-0, you were really like, oh, we're about to flog South. Like, are we going to put 40 on them, 50 on them? Souths were just so flat and we were just completely dominating. We were playing so fast, so quick, and it was really just two different levels of teams going at each other. Like, we looked so good. And then the lightning delay happened, which, by the way, was super weird being at the game. I don't know what it was like on TV, but at the game, there was legitimately like no warning at all that was about to happen. So for us at the game, we were just sitting there watching, and then a dude on the sideline like came on the field, and then all the players just ran off the field, and we had no idea what was happening. So it was really weird to just watch all the players just randomly leave. And then obviously, then they announced there was a lightning delay, but could have been good to like let us know earlier. That's why on TV you can literally hear all the fans boo, because we were all like, where's the game going? I thought there was a streaker at first when the dude came on, because like an NRL official came on. I thought it was security and I thought there must have been a streaker. But nonetheless, after the rain delay, the lightning delay, Souths, I don't know if, Souths just started playing well or if we fell off a bit, probably a bit of both. But it probably was a little bit disappointing, the brand of footy we played after the break. But I think the fact that we played so good heading into it and had that 18-point buffer, we'd sort of earned the right to fall off. And you don't want to fall off mid-game. No, you don't want to do that. But we did earn the right to, obviously, because we went on to win. But as I said, like, we only won on conversions, so it just clearly wasn't good enough after that break. We ended up getting, like, we lost, 18-6 after the rain delay. But, hey, a win's a win. You get the 2 points, especially in an Origin-affected round. In that weather, which is weather that we've sucked in all year, you get the 2 points and you take it, honestly. Obviously, Souths were missing players as well, but you look at the players we had out, the fact that historically we just suck in the rain. I thought, like, it's a win. And as I just said, like, you take the win, you take the 2 points, and you get on with business. You get into the bye next week. It's always really important to get 2 points into a bye, and then we play the Panthers out of the bye. Now, the first thing I want to talk about out of the game, like in terms of what happened in the game, is Toby Sexton. Toby Sexton absolutely brained it yesterday. He killed it. He played so good. He played completely out of his skin. And like, he was playing halfback. Obviously, he was named halfback, so a lot of people are like, yeah, obviously Winston, he was playing halfback. But there was a bit of speculation in the week leading into the game of which side of the field and which role he's going to play. Like, he's named in the 7, but is he actually going to play 6, and is Galvin going to play 7? Because realistically, if Galvin's going to be the halfback moving forward, it makes sense to play Galvin on the right side of the field and put him in that halfback spot. Even if Sticks is on his back, he still could have played that halfback role, but that's not what Galvin did. Galvin played 5/8 on the left side of the field, and Sexton played halfback on the right side of the field. And I think his first try is the perfect example of how good he played. He was being really creative, and he was backing himself, and he was just doing things that he doesn't normally do. And it was really exciting to watch. Like, he dummied a kick and then passed on last and then backed up inside and scored. Like, it was so good to watch. And there was a couple of times where he played, like, I know a lot of experts don't like the term eyes up footy, but that's like, he was playing eyes up footy. He was, instead of just, fifth tackle, I'm going to kick downfield, he'd get it on fifth and he'd sort of assess the situation and go from there. And I thought it was a really good game from Toby Sexton. I thought it was probably his like I was going to say, probably his best game of the season. I'd go as far as saying that was probably his best game in a Bulldogs jersey. If not his best, it would have been right up there. He played really well. And it sort of goes to the point of something Cameron Ciraldo has been saying a lot recently in his press conferences. And some of the players have been echoing this sentiment in podcasts that have been on as well, where Galvin coming in, it creates competition for spots. And Cameron Ciraldo has said since he signed 15 utilities that it's good to have competition for spots. And it's proving to be correct. Now, you look at Jacob Preston talked about, I know I'm jumping over the place, but you'll deal with it. Jacob Preston touched on it as well, how he said this, I think at a press conference maybe, or in a podcast, where during the off-season, the Bulldogs went and they signed, actually, it might not have even been Preston that said it. It might have been about Preston, but regardless, they went and they signed that young Warriors prop Zion. They signed Satili Tupanua. They went and they signed a bunch of forwards in the off-season, and it created a bit more competition for spots in the forward pack. And Jacob Preston is now in Origin, he's playing so good. Max King's in Origin, he's playing so good. All these forwards have jumped up a level in terms of how good they're playing, and it's off the back of a couple of extra forwards coming into camp. And, we signed Leo Thompson from the Knights, and he's not in the Bulldogs yet, but the fact we signed him sort of goes, all right, you're now playing for your spot for next season. And the players are responding. And now the same thing happened with Burton last week, and Ciraldo talked about this in his press conference, where we signed Galvin, and then Burton has arguably his best game ever for the Bulldogs. That's not coincidence. Matt Burton, part of, and I'm not saying he only played good because we signed Galvin and he's competing for the 5/8 spot, but that 100% is part of the reason Matt Burton played really good last week, is because Galvin's come in and Burton's gone, my job isn't safe here. And it's the same for Toby Sexton, where his job isn't safe and now he's got to play for that halfback spot. Realistically, I know we have heaps of young halves. We've got buckets of good young halves. But realistically, none of them are first grade ready. And Matt Burton and Toby Sexton's half spot has been pretty safe. They haven't really been competing for that spot. Like, Drew Hutchison wasn't even picked when Matt Burton got injured. Hayward was. But they're not competing with Hayward for a half spot because he's on the bench or at lock. So realistically, Burton and Sexton haven't been competing for those half spots. And as soon as a half comes in and competes with them for those spots, Burton has his best ever game for the Bulldogs, and the following week, Sexton has his best ever game for the Bulldogs. And if that doesn't show you how good having competition for spots can make players, I don't know what does. It's a perfect example of what Ciraldo has been talking about, and it's really exciting to see, I guess, that competition and that competitiveness in the players continue. And we're probably only going to see these guys get better. I think it's really exciting. Maybe that's a positive way of looking at it, but I think it's really, really exciting. And speaking of Galvin, obviously that was his first 80 minutes in a Bulldogs jersey. I think he did solid. He had plenty of moments that were exciting. I think I just talked about how Toby Sexton just seemed really creative and really took the game on. And I'd say the same thing for Galvin. The only difference is that's kind of what you expect with Lachie Galvin, is he's been signed for that creativity, right? But I thought he brought that. There's been a bit of talk by fans mostly that Reed Money was intentionally not giving Lachlan Galvin the ball. Now, I haven't gone back and watched the game, and I didn't notice it watching the game, but I'm going to be positive, and I'm just going to assume that the reason Reed wasn't giving Galvin the ball is because Galvin was 5'8", so he's not going to be first receiver, and it's probably likely that when Galvin was getting the ball, it was off the back, like out the back of Sexton or out the back of Hayward as distributors. And maybe that's wrong. I'm hoping to go and rewatch it. Apparently, especially in the second half, it was like a thing. But, I hope it's not the case, and I doubt it's the case. I'd say, the hooker's job is to decide what's on and what's not. And, someone messaged me and they were like, there were times where Galvin had all this shape set up and Money would go the other way. That's normal. Halves are setting up shape both ways. If Marnie hits Galvin, then he's ignoring Sexton and the shape Sexton set up. So, yeah, I don't know. Apparently there was an instance where Sexton wasn't ready for it. So, I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch it. But my point there as well, just tying that back to Galvin and sort of his 80 minutes is, would it have been nice to see him get more touches? Yeah, probably. But once again, he was the 5'8", not the halfback. The halfback's generally going to have more touches because they're the halfback. So, Yeah, I don't know. From what Galvin did and his touches, it was just another good performance. I wouldn't put it on the same level as last week, but once again, he came on and played halfback last week, so it's a bit different. And when Toby Sexton is playing that well, you don't really need Galvin to step up and just absolutely go nuts. And the fact that Sexton was playing as good as he was and Galvin didn't force himself into that is actually a really positive thing, because at the end of the day, these two are, you'd think, competing for the other half spot next to Burden. You'd think Burden is locked into the spot. And so the fact that neither of them sort of took away from the other player shows that they weren't being selfish. And it really goes against what Fox League have been reporting all week about the instability and stuff, because if there was instability and if they didn't like each other and if they were sort of competing for a spot, like selfishly competing for it, I don't think we would have seen the success we saw yesterday. I feel like we would have seen these guys just be way too ball dominant and play hero ball. And that's not what we saw at all. So I think that was really positive. I think I was very pleased with the halves. As I said, like Galvin probably, I don't know, like it's not even that you want him to do more. Like he didn't have to. And, you know, you don't want to expect too much from a 5'8". Like this isn't Rugby League Live 4 on rookie mode where you just run through everyone every time. Like it's a game of rugby league in the NRL. I thought they both did really, really well. Speaking of hero ball, Jake Turpin needed to take a chill pill. He had an absolute shocker. I think this was his maybe second or third game of the year, and you'd assume he was trying to like prove that he should be in first grade, but unfortunately probably proved the opposite. He definitely had a game to forget. It was very Tane Milne-like, where he just came on and then was just high tackling and giving away penalties and making errors, and then ended up getting sin binned, and then came back on and then got hooked. Like with a minute or two left, Reed went back on for him. So not a great game from Jake Turpin at all. Terrible haircut as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's like, yeah, I don't know what much else to say there. I will say, I did just mention Reed got benched again. I think he went off with maybe 5 minutes left. And I thought it's interesting that Serrato is using such a little amount of interchanges. Like, because Wilson came off as well. And Wilson coming off was interesting. I assume that was a defensive thing. I don't know if anyone noticed that on TV, but I noticed it at the game because Wilson walked along the dead ball line. He got taken off after South's third try. Yeah, it's confusing because they scored 18 points, but they scored 4 tries. So it was their third try. And yeah, I think Wilson came off, but I feel like it was more so Carraz's defense at center that was the issue, because they weren't necessarily scoring down the wing. I feel like they were scoring inside the center, but I think they wanted to move Carraz back to the wing. And like, I'd rather take Wilson off and put Carraz on the wing than just take Carraz off. I feel like that's fair. And then Sherry went to right center and Taff went to left center. I find the bench where we're using Taff, I don't know, it's a bit weird. But like Serrato's not using his subs, so you may as well have Blake Taff there. And I'm jumping all over the place here, and I apologize. But I do wonder, with the way Serrato has been using his bench with minimal interchanges and having 2 forwards, Bailey Hayward, and then like Taff sometimes, is Galvin going to just ride the bench for a little bit and be that number 17? Like, is there a world where it just becomes Galvin goes to halfback and Sexton plays 20 minutes at hooker every week? I'm not saying that's what I'm not saying that's what I'd do, but I'm just throwing it out there as something we could see, because the way Serrato uses the bench is pretty weird, to be honest. Like, it's the second week in a row where he just hasn't used his interchanges, and he just doesn't seem to, yeah, I don't know, it's weird. Like, I've never seen like a winger subbed off and then the hooker gets subbed off but then subbed back on. Like I've seen hookers get subbed off and back on, like they come off in the 20th minute and back on in the 70th minute or 60th minute. But like Reed came off with 5 minutes left and went back on 2 minutes later. So yeah, I don't know. Like if you got the interchanges, obviously you can do it, but why isn't he using all his interchanges? It's just lots of big minute forwards, but like it was a game where like Max King wasn't playing and stuff. I don't know. It's weird, but we won. We got the job done. That's pretty much all I'm going to talk about. But if you got to the end, thanks for watching. Comment what you thought of the game, anything I've missed, anything you agree or disagree with that I've said. And we look forward to the bye next week and then the Panthers after that. Hopefully we can beat the Panthers. I don't know if I'll do one of these for the bye. We'll see what happens. But as always, up the Dogs.